My name is Jiso, and I'm reading Master Dōgen Shōbōgenzō, and we're on chapter 90. Shizen-biku, the Bhiksu in the Fourth Dhyāna. Shi means four. Zen represents the Sanskrit word dhyāna, which means zazen or the state in zazen. Bhikkhu represents the Sanskrit word bhiksu, which means a Buddhist monk. Shizen-biku, or the bhiksu who had attained the fourth state in zazen, refers to a monk who mistakenly thought that his own state was the state of the arhat, a Buddhist practitioner who has reached the fourth and ultimate stage of practice. When he was dying, an apparition appeared before this monk, something not usually seen by someone who has attained the fourth state in zazen. So he felt that Gautama Buddha had deceived him, and because of his mistaken idea, he fell into hell. Master Dōgen quotes this story as an example of the wrong approach to Buddhism. In addition, in this chapter, he warns strongly against the serious mistake of believing that Buddhism, Confucianism, and Taoism all teach the same thing. The 14th patriarch, the ancestral master Nagarjuna, said, "Among the Buddha's disciples, there was this one bhiksu who, on attaining the fourth dhyāna, became highly self-conceited and thought he had attained the fourth effect. When he first attained the first dhyāna, he thought he had attained the state of Shrotāpana. When he attained the second dhyāna, he thought it was the state of Sakradagamin. When he attained the third dhyāna, he thought it was the state of Anagamin. And when he attained the fourth dhyāna, he thought it was arhathood." Those names, so Shrotāpana is a stream enterer, Sakradagamin is one who will return only once, and Anagamin is one who is not subject to returning. He thus became proud of himself and did not seek progress further. When his life was about to end, he saw coming to him the form of a middle netherworld. The middle netherworld, the middle existence between death and regeneration. He saw coming to him the form of a middle netherworld for one who has the fourth dhyāna, and there arose in him the false view. He thought, "There is no nirvana, the Buddha has deceived me." Because of this evil false view, he lost the middle netherworld for the fourth dhyāna and saw the form of a middle netherworld in Avicī-Niraya. Avicī-Niraya, well, Avicī means waveless, but in this name it's a particular hell. Niraya just means hell. When his life ended, he was at once born in Avicī-Niraya. The bhiksus asked the Buddha, when the life of this Aranya bhiksu ended, where was he born? The Buddha said, "This person was born in Avicī-Niraya." The bhiksus were greatly surprised. Could sitting in zazen and keeping the precepts lead to that? The Buddha answered as before and said, "Everything stemmed from his conceit. When he attained the fourth dhyāna, he thought he had attained the fourth effect. Then when he came to the end of his life and saw the form of a middle netherworld for the fourth dhyāna, there arose in him the false view. He thought, 'There is no nirvana. I am an arhat. Now nonetheless I am to be reborn. The Buddha has committed a deceit.' Thereupon saw the form of a middle netherworld to Avicī-Niraya, and as soon as his life ended, he was born in Avicī-Niraya. Then the Buddha preached in verse, saying, 'Even with abundant knowledge, observance of precepts and dhyāna, he had yet to attain the Dharma by which excesses are ended. Although he possessed this virtue, this fact was hard for him to believe. That he fell into hell was because he slandered the Buddha. It was not connected with the fourth dhyāna. The Bhiksu is called the Bhiksu in the fourth dhyāna and is also called the Bhiksu of no knowledge. The story warns against mistaking attainment of the fourth dhyāna for the fourth effect, and it also warns against the false view which slanders the Buddha. All in the great order of human beings and gods have known this story. From the time when the Tathagata was in the world until today, both in the western heavens and the eastern lands, in order to warn against attaching to what is wrong as if it were right, human beings and gods say in derision, that is like attaining the fourth dhyāna and thinking that it is the fourth effect. The wrongs of this bhiksu, if I now briefly summarize them, are threefold. Firstly, although he is somebody of no knowledge who cannot distinguish between the fourth dhyāna and the fourth effect, he vainly departs from the teacher and idly lives alone in the Aranya. Happily, this is the time when the Tathagata is in the world. If this bhiksu regularly visited the place of the Buddha so that he were constantly meeting Buddha and hearing the Dharma, the mistakes described here could never be. Instead, living alone in the Aranya, he does not visit the place of the Buddha and does not meet the Buddha and hear the Dharma at last, which is why he is like this. Even if he fails to visit the place of the Buddha, he should go to the orders of the great arhats and receive their instruction. Vainly to live in solitude is a mistake born of self-conceit. Secondly, when he attains the first dhyāna, he thinks it is the first effect. When he attains the second dhyāna, he thinks it is the second effect. When he attains the third dhyāna, he thinks that it is the third effect. And when he attains the fourth dhyāna, he thinks it is the fourth effect. This is his second mistake. The forms of the first, second, and third dhyānas and the forms of the first, second, and third effects are beyond comparison. How could we draw a comparison? This mistake derives from the fault of being without knowledge, a fault which itself derives from not serving a teacher and from ignorance. Among the disciples of Upagupta, there is a bhiksu who, with devout mind, has left his family life and got the fourth dhyāna, but he thinks it is the fourth effect. This is in italics, so it's another quote from a sutra. Upagupta, using expedient means, causes him to go to a distant place and make a band of robbers materialize on the road thereto. He also materializes 500 merchants. The robbers attack the merchants and there is a massacre. Seeing it, the bhiksu becomes afraid. At once he thinks to himself, I am not an arhat, this must be the third effect. After the merchants are dead, there only remains the daughter of a wealthy merchant. She says to the bhiksu, solely I beg you, virtuous monk, take me with you. The bhiksu replies, the Buddha does not permit me to walk with a woman. The girl says, I will follow you from a distance, virtuous monk. The bhiksu takes pity on her. In sight of each other they walk on. The venerable one then materializes a big river. The woman says, virtuous monk, will you cross with me? The bhiksu is downstream, the woman upstream. The girl suddenly falls into the water and calls, virtuous monk, save me. Then the hands of the bhiksu reach to her and rescue her. He thinks about her smoothness and lust arises in his mind. At once he recognizes that he is not an anagamin. But feeling intense love for this woman, he leads her to a secluded place, wanting to have intercourse with her. On seeing that this is the master, he is greatly ashamed and stands with head bowed. The venerable one says, you considered yourself to be an arhat. How could you want to do such a bad deed? He led the bhiksu into the Sangha, made him confess, explained to him the pivot of the Dharma, and caused him to attain the state of an arhat. Oh, I did well then. It's getting quite saucy for a minute. The Bhiksu initially made the mistake of having views, but on witnessing the massacre he becomes afraid. At that time he thinks, I'm not an arhat. Still he is mistaken in thinking that he might be in the third effect. After that, because of thinking about the woman's smoothness, he causes lust to arise in his mind and knows that he is not an anagamin. He has no thought of slandering the Buddha, no thought of slandering the Dharma, and no thought of turning against the sacred teachings. He is not the same as the Bhiksu in the Fourth Dhyāna. The Bhiksu possesses the ability of one who has learned the sacred teachings, and so he knows himself that he is not an arhat and not an anagamin. People without knowledge today neither know what arhat is nor know what Buddha is. Therefore they do not know themselves that they are not arhats and are not Buddhas. That's an important point. That they just randomly think and say, I am Buddha, may be a great mistake and a profound fault. Students should learn first what Buddha is. A master of the past says, therefore we know that those who learn the sacred teachings know the proper order from the beginning, and transgressions, even if they occur, are easily resolved. How true are the words of the master of the past. Even if they make the mistake of having views, people who have learned even a bit of the Buddha Dharma will never be deceived by themselves and will never be deceived by others. I have heard there was a person who thought that he had become Buddha, and when the sky did not clear as expected, he thought it must be due to the hindrance of demons. The sky did clear, but after that he did not see King Brahma requesting him to preach the Dharma. He knew that he was not a Buddha. He thought he must be an arhat. But when others spoke ill of him, his mind became temperamental, and he knew that he was not an arhat. So he thought he must be in the third effect. But then he saw a woman and thought lewd thoughts. He knew that he was not a sacred person. Here also, because a person honestly recognized the form of the teachings, he was able to be like this. Lewd thoughts. Now, those who know the Buddha Dharma sense their own wrongness like this and swiftly get rid of mistakes. So that's that awareness, isn't it? Being aware that you're kind of deviating from the path. Those who do not know idly remain for their whole lives in stupidity, and even if they receive life after life, still it will be so. This disciple of Upagupta, having attained the fourth dhyāna, thinks he is in the fourth effect, but thereupon he has that wisdom that I am not an arhat. If the Bhiksu of no knowledge, on coming to the end of his life and being able to see the middle netherworld for the fourth dhyāna, had that recognition, I am not an arhat, then he could not be guilty of slandering the Buddha. Still more, it has been a long time since he attained the fourth dhyāna. Why has he failed to recognize, by reflecting on himself, that he is not in the fourth effect? If he were aware already of not being in the fourth effect, how could he fail to correct himself? Instead, he vainly sticks to his wrong consideration, hopelessly sunk in a false view. Therefore, when his life ends, he makes an enormous mistake, the wrongness of which is so grave that he is duly fallen into a Vichy hell. Monk of no knowledge, even if you have spent your whole life thinking that the fourth dhyāna is the fourth effect, if you are able, when your life is ending, to see the middle netherworld for the fourth dhyāna, you should confess your lifelong mistake and consider that you were never in the fourth effect. How could you think the Buddha has deceived me? Though nirvana does not exist, he has fabricated that nirvana exists. This is a wrongness born of no knowledge. This sin already is to have slandered the Buddha. Because of this, the middle netherworld to Avicii appears to him, and when his life ends, he falls down into Avicii hell. How could anyone, even a saint of the fourth effect, equal the Tathagata? Shariputra has long been a saint of the fourth effect. Correct all the wisdom that exists in a 3,000 great thousandfold world. See the wisdom of others, excluding the Tathagata, as one division, and compare a 16th of Shariputra's wisdom with the wisdom that remains in the 3,000 great thousandfold world. That remaining wisdom will not equal the 1/16th of Shariputra's wisdom. Nevertheless, on hearing the Tathagata preach Dharma that he has never preached before, Shariputra does not think, "This is different from the Buddha's preaching at former and latter times. The Buddha is deceiving me." He says in praise, "Pārpiyas has nothing like this." The world-honored one preaches the truth. The Tathagata delivers wealth increaser. Wealth increaser, the name of a rich man said to be already 100 when he resolved to become a monk. Shariputra refused to let him, saying he was too old. Later, Shrivadi asked the Buddha, and the Buddha allowed it. Shrivadi is described in fascicle 4 of Kengo Q and also mentioned in Shōbōgenzō chapter 86. I thought it was familiar. The Tathagata delivers wealth increaser. Shariputra does not deliver wealth increaser. The great difference between the fourth effect and the Buddha effect is like this, Buddha with a capital B. If the world of the 10 directions were full of the likes of Shariputra and the other disciples, and together they tried to fathom the Buddha's wisdom, it would be impossible. Kung Tzu of Lao Tzu has never heard such virtue. Who among students of the Buddha Dharma could fail to fathom Confucius and Lao Tzu? Lao Tzu wrote the Tao. But no student of Kung Tzu and Lao Tzu has ever fathomed the Buddha Dharma. People today of the great kingdom of Sung mostly uphold the principle of agreement between Kung Tzu and Lao Tzu and the Buddha's truth. It is the gravest of wrongs, as later I shall expand. When the Bhiksu in the Fourth Dhyāna, seeing his own wrong view as true, considers that the Buddha has deceived him, he turns his back on the Buddha's truth forever. The enormity of his stupidness may be equal to that of the 6 teachers. Who are the 6 teachers? 6 non-Buddhist teachers who denied the existence of good and evil. A fatalist, a skeptic, a materialist, and one who explained the universe with 7 elemental factors, and the founder of Jainism. Oh dear. It's tough if you get it wrong, isn't it? All right. Let's leave it there. Thanks for listening. Take care.